Good morning, everyone. Everyone knows the movie by Steven Spielberg, Saving Private Ryan, which is actually about a Jewish General Miller who leads a platoon of soldiers to go find a paratrooper after 3 of his brothers were killed in battle on D-Day. And there is one more surviving brother, and in order that the mother should not be grief-stricken to the point of having lost all of her children, they risked their lives to find this fourth sibling, to bring him home to his mother. This is a story of compassion. This week's Torah portion has a law of war and compassion as well. The Torah says that before the soldiers went to battle, the general got up and he said to the soldiers, if there's someone here who built a house but didn't get to dedicate it, to live in it, let him go home, lest he die in battle and never get to live in the house that he built. If there's a man who planted a vineyard and didn't get to eat from the fruit of the vineyard, let him go home, lest he die in battle and not get to eat from the fruit of his vineyard. And if there's a man here who got engaged to a woman but didn't marry her yet, let him go home from the battlefield, lest he die in battle and not get to marry the woman that he loves. And once again, the Torah is showing compassion, to not allow this young soldier who has a dream to fulfill, whether it's to live in a new home or to eat from the fruit of his vineyard or to marry the woman of his love, to die without experiencing that. But perhaps there's another message, and the message is that the other soldiers, when they see that these 3 soldiers are exempt and they go home and they go to fight, it gives them the motivation to fight. Why? Because it reminds them what they're fighting for. They're fighting a battle so that their country, their people can live in peace. Because the goal of life is to do all of these things, to build, to create, to plant, not just a vineyard, but plant good deeds in this world, and to love, not just our spouses, our wives, but loving relationships with our family members and our friends. And therefore, when these soldiers are exempt from battle, it then reminds the rest of the army why they're going to battle. That battle is a means to an end. The end is the ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is for people to build homes, to build families, to have loving relationships, and to plant vineyards, sweet fruit in this world. It's a story told about an artist who decided he wanted to travel the world and find the most beautiful thing in the world to paint a portrait of. So he started traveling around the world. And one day he sees a bride going to her wedding canopy. And he says to her, tell me, what's the most beautiful thing in the world? And without a moment's hesitation, he says, well, of course it's love. He says, that's right. Love is the most beautiful thing. I'm going to paint a portrait of love. But then he sits down with his canvas and he says, how do you paint a picture of love? What does love look like on the canvas? So he continued his journey. And then he sees a soldier coming home from the battlefield. He says, tell me, what's the most beautiful thing in the world? He says, without hesitating, of course it's peace. And the artist says, of course it's peace. Let me paint a portrait of peace. He sits down to paint it, but he says, how do you paint peace on canvas? And finally he continues his journey, and one day he sees a rabbi going to the synagogue, and he says, Rabbi, what's the most beautiful thing in the world? And the rabbi says, of course it's faith. He says, that's right. Faith. Let me paint a portrait of faith. But he sits down to paint, and again he cannot figure out how to paint faith on canvas. So he gives up, and he goes home to his family after having traveled for months. And when he knocks on the door, his wife opens the door, and his family, his children, his wife, they embrace him and kiss him and hug him. And he says, oh, this is the love that the bride was talking about. And then he comes into his home, and he sees the adoring eyes of his children looking to him with such faith and trust and confidence. And he says, this is the faith that children have to their father, and all of us have to our Father in heaven. This is the picture of faith. And then he feels the peace and the tranquility of his home. And he says, this is the peace that the soldier was talking about. And so he decided to paint a portrait of his loving, happy family sitting in their home with love, peace, and faith. Let us always remember the goal of life. Yes, we have to do battle sometimes, physically or metaphorically. But the ultimate goal is not the battle. It's not even the victory. It's to lead productive lives filled with love, with peace and tranquility, and with faith in God. Have a wonderful day.